Hi, good evening, and welcome to Hop at Home and JAGfest 5.0 Reimagined. Tonight, we're going to have a behind-the-curtain look at this year's festival. For those of you who don't know, JAG Productions is the region's premier African-American theater company, and we're honored to share space in the same community as JAG and to have them on Hop at Home this evening. This year's new play festival is a little different. It still features 5 works, but they are radio plays this year. So it's a new format, and we have several of the extraordinary artists who came together to make those radio plays with us in conversation this evening. 2 of whom are the evening's hosts, and the first of which is Jarvis Green, who is the founding artistic director of JAG Productions. Jarvis founded JAG in 2016 and every year produces 5 new works through JAGfest by Black playwrights. Hello, Jarvis.
Hi, Joshua.
Good to see you. And in 2020, I'm still going to talk about you. In 2020, Jarvis launched the Black Joy Project, which is a 3-tier project that encompasses a Black theater methodology, a play embodying that methodology, and a documentary film that captures the whole process. So the other host for the evening is Raven Cassell. And Raven is the associate producer of JAGfest 5.0 this year. Raven is a New York City-based theater artist, actor, writer, producer. Hello, Raven.
Hello, Josh.
Good to see you. And Raven's work lies at the intersection of diaspora studies, visual art, and storytelling. It is so good to have you both here tonight. I'm really looking forward to this show. And I think I'm just going to exit stage left and turn the evening over to you two.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Josh.
Thanks.
Good to see you.
Jarvis.
Hi.
Hello.
How you doing? Hello.
I'm well.
Here we are.
Well.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
So tonight we're gonna just open tonight's history of the festival, right? That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so JAGfest is a New Works Play Festival that was started. Oh gosh, we're in our 5th year. And when I started it, I didn't really know exactly what it would look like, but it's definitely have evolved since then. Like the first year, there were some new works. There were works that were already published. We had a cabaret performance. And then the following year, I feel like that's when the festival arrived. That's when I met you. I met Stevie Walker Webb, Cord Arrington Tuttle, Nathan Youngerberg, all of the collaborators and friends that I have been working with nonstop since JAGfest 2.0. And then the festival just sort of expanded from then. We started doing collaborations at Dartmouth, this. The theater department at Dartmouth invited us to come to do panel conversations. And then JAGfest 3.0, we had a year of all female playwrights, which was really incredible. And then last year was another kind of gorgeous year of just incubating, developing new work, creating this space to kind of explore and new territory and new terrain. So I'm excited that we're here today, although we can't be in person, dancing at Peace Mill Pies. Here we are in this kind of digital landscape.
And don't we have images of the past JAGfests that we can share with folks?
Yes. Let's take people on a journey. That's JAGfest 1.0. Taylor Reynolds, who's on the left there, she is one of the artistic directors of the Movement Theater Company, which is a theater based in New York City. Kyria Traber, who's one of our directors this year, she's standing on stage in the white, who's been at JAGfest every year. This is
that's me. You can't see me, but that's me on the end.
Yeah, that was a really powerful piece.
It was a very exciting. projects.
Talkbacks after Chord's piece. That's Stevie Walker-Webb, Monica Ndunu, who's on the staff at in the theater department at Dartmouth. Brilliant, brilliant woman. And this is a Dartmouth luncheon that we had, and I think that was like 2 years ago.
That was 2.0.
2.0, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of that. I think we'll look back on this in like history and like in a book or something. You know, like it's really beautiful to be thinking about the work that we've created in
the memories,
this region.
Yeah. And how the work has grown. You know, we planted so many seeds for projects in Vermont.
Yeah. What was so this is the first time you've been kind of on the that was last year. That's David Glover, who's going to be on our panel tonight. Yeah, so just wanted to give folks a context of like that
where we've
week.
come from.
Where we've come from. It's like a celebration. It's a time to, you know, connect with your brothers and sisters and
just get out of the city, slow down, and really, you know, immerse in theater making in the process. And I think I was telling you earlier that this year feels like a bridge year. It feels like where we're going next with JAGfest is to continue this legacy of incubation and isolation and you know, really stepping into audacious territory of you know, theater making. But I think, and that's, you know, me being hopeful that we can be together in IRL in real life next year. But I'm really excited for the possibilities of taking all that we've kind of journeyed through over the years and the attention that we got to kind of put to JAGfest this year when, you know, we didn't have to like be present. We got to kind of refocus our energies on the festival in a more concentrated way about, you know, where we want to take the festival next. And so I think next year will be a really exciting, you know, leap to a next phase of JAGfest. Really looking forward to like continuing to create experiences. How do you see, what are you excited about? What has this year taught you about the future of JAGfest?
Well, I mean, I think always for, like I was saying with JAGfest 2.0, I felt like that was like the year that the company started, although it was like a year before. Like there's something about the festival that feels like the heartbeat of the company. And like for me, like one who's kind of bringing the people together, I see the integration within our community. I see how the artists not only get to have their kind of own insulated time together, but it's also a time where like it's in the middle of winter and folks are like itching to be in community with each other. So I love how, you know, through that week, we have all of these like series of events where folks get to connect with each other. And I, you know, for me, I feel like that there are a lot of communities that can benefit from this model. And I would love to see JAGfest in New York. I would love to see JAGfest in South Carolina. I would love to see.
Is JAGfest JAGfest if it's in New York? I think what makes it so special is that it's not in New York and that we all kind of come from New York. And you know, this year feels a lot different because I think of so much of the essence of JAGfest is like getting on that train, you know, and like just riding up north into the darkness. That is kind of, for me, the essence of JAGfest.
Yeah, that sort of like
and meeting people who live in the same city as me, but I only met them. There's so many people. I think one thing about JAGfest is that, you know, we stick. It's like you come to JAGfest one year and you always kind of return your way back in some capacity, and the people you've met. I'm in Mexico right now with somebody who I met at JAGfest. And I think that's what makes JAGfest super special, is like the experience of it. It's very experiential.
Yeah. So let's talk about the format. Let's talk about the format for this year's festival. Since we can't be in person, we have decided to do evening of radio plays. So I think for me, right, I was thinking about, like, I was kind of dragging my my heels, like, because JAGfest is such a special thing that requires like being with people and being in a community. And so I'm like, I don't know if I would really want to kind of do Zoom plays of like JAGfest. And so I started talking to you about like how I'm like grappling with that. And we kind of came to this idea of like, should we maybe return to this idea of audio plays, and that immediately got me super excited. And then you were like, oh, well, how about like 10 to 20 minute plays, which really excited me because I'm a 90-minute type of theater person. Like I'm in and out. I don't need to be sitting in the theater for 3 and 4 hours. 2 hours is like pushing it. So when you said like, let's do like 10 to 20 minute plays, I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
So, which I love, because it's like what you said, we're returning to this format, like the golden age of like radio plays. Can you speak more about that? Because you emailed all of the directors a beautiful link with some historical context of radio plays.
Yeah, I mean, I think what really drew me to the format, I listened to a radio play and I felt like I received a wholesome story. I felt satisfied, I felt fed. And so I thought, I was like, oh, this is a really interesting way to get a story out. And, as a writer, I thought it's a really good sample, a really good way to share your work without like, folks don't always want to read, and folks don't always want to like, do the extra labor of like finding out, what your work is. And so I, was just researching where this format has come from. I know that, radio plays, preceded television. So I was just a little curious about what that history looks like. And there was this online exhibition that talked about the origin and how Chicago was the center for radio drama, and how, for ago in the 20s, when they first started, allotting, slots for Black programming, folks started writing soap operas, and that was kind of where, writers and activists were able to, get their stories out. And, this work, was quite controversial, to the point where, these artists were having to be snuck out of, the studios in freight elevators in order to, after they've aired, controversial material. And so that excited me. That excited me because there's still possibility for us to engage. And I think Zoom plays are interesting, and I've been a part of some, and I just wanted to continue to explore other formats and not use the pandemic as though it is, it's not exactly how I want to engage with theater right now. I wanted to use this time to exercise another avenue. And I thought radio plays could be really cool to perform, to write for. Yeah.
Beautiful. So folks that are listening from home, we're going to encourage you, if you have any questions for Raven or any of the artists, we're going to be answering your questions throughout the night. So feel free. And I'm going to start with Sarah Shipton, who's already jumping on this. What new ideas did the Joy Project add to your JAG experience what new ideas did the Joy Project add to your experience? Go, Raven.
I can answer that. Yeah, I think even just, our theme this year was love stories. And I think, we had just come off of the Black Joy Project. I think we were it was 2 weeks or a week and a half before we started working on this project. So coming off of that Joy ride, love stories, joy, an extension of joy, of pleasure, was still centered for me. And how could we continue that? That's kind of what inspired the idea to do love stories, to continue to indulge and center pleasure.
Perfect. Yeah, I agree. What Raven said, that was one of the big kind of takeaways from the Black Joy Project. It's how can we center wellness and joy in our artistic practices, and how can we use that as a tool to create, and also, is there opportunity to move through pain and trauma to find that joy? And so that was a really kind of eye-opening moment for me, that maybe you can't just jump in it and just be let's be joyful to create something new. Maybe there's an excavating, maybe there's a shedding that needs to happen before you can get to that. So
yeah, and I think too, what happens there is creating healing work, that requires of you to do some healing. What we learned in the Black Joy Project is that, like you said, we can't just arrive at joy. We have to do some excavating, and we can't arrive at love without the trauma that usually we're walking into it with. We have to navigate. So I think, that healing work that is required of you to really get to that thing, that beautiful, bright thing that we're trying to get at, whether it's love or joy or pleasure. So yeah, I think that's inserting it in our process.
Perfect. So before we go to bringing our artist on, I thought it would be great if we can kind of go into, the artists we chose for this year's festival. You were responsible for choosing a lot of the actors, and so talk to our audience about what was your process, how you're connected to some of these people, and also I'm really interested how you arrived at having a company of actors for this year's festival.
Yeah, I think I just kind of, a lot of the folks either I've worked with, gone to school with, and fans of. And I think, it's always a really exciting opportunity when you get to at least ask someone if they'd like to work with you on something. So I think, most of the folks I was either really big fans of or fans of them, and they happen to be my friends, or I've gone to school with them, so I know their work ethic. I think too, the biggest thread for me is artists who are curious and fastidious about making work centered in Black culture, Black liberation. I think that is kind of the thread in terms of what artists excite me.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I was mostly on the kind of behind the scenes, putting together. My work was primarily responsible for our sound engineer and our production manager and stage managers, and I definitely had a hand in what playwrights I thought should be represented this year. But I think that my role still has and it's a lot of heavy lifting in the production department. Yeah, go ahead.
You put together a very strong team. I think particularly working in this format in this way remotely required a lot of management And I think you pulled the best people to kind of hold our ship together and allow us to get to the work in a time where it's just not as easy to gather folks.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to introduce and bring on our first guest. I've been following this brilliant man for a while now. And so our first guest tonight is Jonathan McCrory. Jonathan is a two-time Obie Award-winning Harlem-based artist who has served as artistic director at the National Black Theater since 2012 under the leadership of CEO Sade Lythcott. He has directed numerous professional productions and concerts, and I have been a huge fan of Jonathan's for a very long time, and he's directing a show in this year's festival. So thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. It's so good to see you. How are you?
It's so good to be part of this. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. Of course. Where are you calling in from?
So I'm calling in from Harlem. So I am in Harlem, New York, where it is snowing. And I just finished, actually, because I live in a brownstone, shoveling the snow in front of my home. So that was quite eventful.
Yep. And so during our little tech rehearsal, you were still like working.
Yes, I was.
So speaking of working, tell us about NBT. For people that don't know about NBT, tell us your role and what the company is. And also who you are as an artist, a human, humanitarian, all of that stuff. Yeah.
So Jonathan McCrory, I'm the artistic director of National Black Theater. I like to be known as like a creative doula, actually, of NBT, and I'll talk a little bit about what that means for me. So National Black Theater was founded in 1968 by visionary entrepreneur and artist Dr. Barbara Ann Tier, who wanted to make a choice to invest and to really enrich and enliven and actually to create infrastructure for her people and for her culture. And she went to where her people and her culture were, the African diaspora, and that was Harlem in 1968. So after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, it really ignited a lot of what we now know as the Black Arts Movement, and Dr. Barbara Ann Tier is considered one of the mothers of the Black Arts Movement. And what's really significant about NBT is not only its legacy to being a part of the cultural bowl of Black culture, but also its entrepreneurship. So Dr. Tier actually bought a city block, which gave NBT its permanent home on 125th Street and 5th Avenue. She picked that address for a very particular reason, because she wanted to buy the place where culture and opulence. So if you anywhere in the world, you go to you say 125th Street, people thought Harlem Renaissance, it's me, I'm there. And then if you said 5th Avenue, people think Saks, Tiffany, opulence. So she wanted to create the intersection. She wanted to own the intersection of the two, because she wanted to have the most famous address in the world. She called it the most famous address of the world. So we've been actually building from that zeitgeist ever since that declaration of creating a space for Black culture to be opulent, for Black culture to be well-resourced, for Black culture to have a home, a destination for it to bloom and blossom in New York. So we're actually in the process of doing a capital redevelopment process where we're actually reimagining the entire site. So we're actually about to we actually moved out of the building as of December, and we're going to be building a new residential multi-use theatrical and retail space that will reposition the theater to be well capitalized for the next 50 years and be able to be a destination yet again for Black artists to think in innovative technology and with with the resources they deserve to be able to be trained to do more cultural production on this planet. So, and just a little bit around creative doula. Why I prefer creative doula over artistic director, even though I utilize that term, is that if you think about a doula is a person that helps to birth, to give ideas or give actual humans space and be the intermediary between a parent's manifestation of their child. And I think of myself as a creative doula as I help artists be in the between space of birthing their creative ideation, their imagination on this planet. So that's why I like to use the term creative doula. So that's a little bit about, I think that's a little bit about me. That covers a little bit.
I was like grinning from ear to ear. Like, I mean, you just like kept going. I'm like, oh my God. Like that is, it's like, yeah, it's why I do what I do. Like, that was so beautiful. That is so beautiful. So what does NBT, what is like Black arts theater communities like need from the community?
So I would say, especially during quarantine, especially during this moment in time, I think that it is important to check in, to just check in on Black institutions, on institutions led by Black people. I think it's very important to check in, and we do a lot to create care for our community. Just like creating content like this takes a lot of infrastructure. It takes a lot of time and energy. And while many of our other counterparts, and some Black institutions don't even have the capacity to create this kind of infrastructure too. Also, I just want to name that. So there is, because they're going into the pandemic, as we've seen, as the pandemic has hit many Black and brown bodies harder and communities harder than it has our counterparts. That's the same thing with the institutions. This pandemic, this shutdown, has really hit many Black institutions in a different kind of way than it has hit our counterparts, our white-led institutions. And so I think there's a need and necessity to check in, a need and necessity to figure out what does it mean to volunteer, a need and necessity to figure out what does contribution look like. How do you contribute to making sure that a cultural space is not only just like kind of surviving in this moment, but actually has the opportunity to thrive. There's a new economy that is showing up on the brink of this moment. And I just think that Black institutions could use the thought partners of its community to be a participant in that new economy. It's an opportunity for us to make a quantum leap in our known values so that we start to actually make a dividend on how our culture has helped to shape this society.
You're like, you're a doula and like a preacher. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, yes. So tell us about the play that you directed by Loy A. Webb.
Oh yeah, so I had the privilege. I've been a fan of Loy. I don't know, y'all didn't know this, but I've been a fan of Loy for a while. I love her work. In the Light was the first time I got to see her work in production. And I just have really been just a fan of her work, and shout out to Logan, who was the director of that show, because I just really, really enjoyed it. So Loy wrote a really beautiful piece around a family in a moment of potential crisis, talking about love. Love is how does love weather crisis? How does love weather the distance of intimacy and also the closeness of intimacy, and how does family structure live inside of love? And we got to play. I had the beautiful privilege of really being able to collaborate with her and really expand with the awesome ensemble that you all also paired me with surprisingly beautifully well. So y'all did the damn thing. But with that ensemble, really, really working to unearth and awaken and enliven and actually come to the center place of what does a Raven came to see or listen, because there was no scene, listen to a rehearsal of the radio play, and she wrote back something that actually was a beautiful note and actually the goal that we were searching for. There were moments that she felt that she could feel people hugging. She felt, even though it was just sound and she couldn't see the visuals, she could sonically hear warmth, and sonically hear embrace, and sonically hear love. And I think for me, what Loy has done so beautifully and given us opportunity to is look at the vibration of intimacy from a space of the sonic word. And we get to step into the delicate dance of what that intimacy may and can look like.
I love it. Jonathan, thank you for like joining us for JAGfest. Thank you for your like inspiration. Thank you for your energy, your love, and the brilliant work that you're doing at NBT. I hope this isn't the last time. I mean,
me neither.
Let's keep building. Let's keep building. All my love. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. We're gonna bring Raven Cassell back on. She's gonna join us. I know. I know.
Wow.
It's so Jonathan too. Like I'm like ready to jump out of my chair. I just like I'm always like moved by his energy. So anyway, I'm gonna go backstage and let you take over this next conversation.
Yeah. I'm really excited. Next, we'll be in conversation with SHARIFFA Kelimo Ali. She is an international creative leader committed to advancing radical change through the power of art and activism. She works across disciplines, directing films, virtual reality experiences, plays, moving her audiences to engage with timely issues touching upon Black, Afropolitan, and African American identities. Originally from Kenya and raised in South Africa, SHARIFFA has lectured and directed at NYU, Brooklyn College, Yale University, Princeton University, productions including Eclipsed, Detroit 67, Intimate Apparel, We Are Proud to Present, and an original musical, We Were Everywhere. In 2020, SHARIFFA was named Artist in Residence at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, the largest repertory theater in the United States, where she helmed the world premiere of Karen ZECARIAS' The Copper Children. Previously, she served as an assistant director to her mentor, Cynthia Nixon, for Rashida Speaking, Steve at the New Group, and Motherstruck Culture Project. SHARIFFA's debut virtual reality short, Atamu, is part of the official selection at Sundance Festival 2020. Wow, SHARIFFA. Wow, hello.
I think I just aged 10 years.
Welcome. And your beautiful South African adornments.
You know, I had to represent the Ngoonies. I was just watching a South African film on Netflix. And I was so blown away with the storytelling and the nuance and so I was my South African pride is in full bloom tonight.
Yeah, you and I met many years ago before I actually spent time in South Africa, where I actually ran into Jonathan, who was just here, and he and I spent time together in South Africa doing theater things. But I met you before that trip many years ago when we first kind of got to New York. And it's really beautiful to kind of find our way back to one another and work professionally together. That this has been extremely gratifying and feels somewhat soulmate-ish.
It does in the sense that you know, I think we've been cheerleading for one another and are really, I think, really thrilled that we found a way to find our paths back in alignment and to make work together in what has been such a beautiful process, fueled by the beautiful writing of yours, Raven. I still, you know, revel in how disarming your words are and how necessary, how sort of filling to the soul it was to get to work on your text. I kept saying at the top of every rehearsal, you know, just to dampen the mood, I would talk about how much I didn't like working remotely and how much I preferred to be in the theater, and I would, you know, make a fuss. But then as soon as we would tap into the words and let the words do the work, we were transformed and transported. And that's a testament to your beautiful work. Thank you for this little saving grace of the process.
Thank you, because it was the first time I've gotten to share my work with other artists to work with.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was very tender, and I was very tender, and you and I talk about what I really appreciated, which was the rigor and the respect that you brought to the work. You just respected my piece, and you know. And because I was also performing in it, when I would, you know, be in I remember one time you said to me, I said, I can't do it. And you said, this is your job. And I was like, okay. And it was those moments where, like, you know, I felt taken care of, and I felt I just trusted you so much, and I'm so grateful for the life you spoke into my work and the encouragement you've given me to really continue this piece, as it is a full-length piece for the love of jazz, and we got to kind of write. I got to kind of write it for radio and kind of take it from that full-length stage play to this audio play.
What is that like for you, Raven? I'm so curious. You know, people often like, what is it like to direct? What is it like to write for radio? What is it like to have been maybe groomed or fashioned into an artist that is used to working with, you know, maybe bodies in a space, or maybe bodies in front of a camera? What is it like to remove, you know, in some way, some of the primary senses of theater in order to sort of meet the moment in the radio play? I'm so curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, like you were saying, how you know, it's not what you would want to do, and I was just today kind of writing to myself why I love theater so much, because theater is every art form all at once. It's visual art, it's performance art, it's literary art, and so yeah. But this was very interesting, and a very interesting exercise, because I then had to pivot and kind of, I think the technique I ended up using was talking directly to the audience, like kind of carrying the audience along the story with the character as opposed to a narrator. And so Blue, the lead character, she kind of got to tell her story, and there was a little bit of showing and a little bit of telling. So we would, you know, have the kind of journal entry or her column, because she's a columnist. We'll have her kind of carry the story that way, and then we show it, and we go into a scene, and then we go back into the narration, and then we jump back into a scene. So we got to play with both of those kind of techniques, which was really fun as a performer.
Right, and it was in some ways more. It added a dimension, I think, to the work, in that you had the events, and then just outside of that, those events with the I guess narration or the column, we're hearing her world build for us, but also giving a different perspective. And I found that she was very vulnerable in her writing as a columnist. I found that her columns were more vulnerable than she was able to be in those from within the scenarios. And it's really interesting as artists sometimes, right? Our writing, our artwork can be sometimes more vulnerable than we're prepared to be with each other, you know, and move through the world. Is that something that you, I feel like I can make whatever statements, I can do whatever, that I can have that impact on stage, but sometimes mirroring that in life is harder.
It is. It's, you know, sometimes, or characters are the mask, right? You know, as performers, even as writers, I think there's me in every character. There's me in Jazz. There's me in Ida. And it's a really beautiful thing when you can like put all those aspects of yourself in one room and have them come up against one another. And the things that, you know, you may hate about yourself are now in conversation with, you know, other aspects of yourself. So it's really, I think that's like that desire to kind of play with all those, you know, aspects of yourself is kind of what makes someone, you know, need to be in the theater. That desire to look at oneself and examine oneself. Yeah, and I think being a Black theater artist, that allows us to look at, I know for me at least, my work is an examination of, you know, this intersection of my race, of my gender, of my class, of my culture. And so the stage is like the perfect place to play with those things, play with those ideas.
Sometimes the safest place in a world that doesn't always value Black life in the way that it should, in a country that is hostile that is filled with immense grief and turmoil. The stage can sometimes be the safest place, even the radio stage.
The radio stage.
Radio stage. Is that a new word we coined?
I think Clubhouse even coined it, because that's the language they use for the stage, right? Like, which I thought was really fun, because we didn't have to acquire a new vocabulary.
Exactly. That is true. But I do think we are kind of on the brink of something really exciting. Clubhouse for us says what? Are we millennials now?
I think I'm a millennial. Well, we're about a year apart. Yeah.
We're mid millennials, middle-aged millennials. For us, I think that it's a new form completely, and getting to see how the app worked and how it could be a place to foster community was really impressive. And you could see who's tuned in, who's supporting, and to have it be available in a live way and then for it to live on. It's really something that we don't always get in theater.
Yeah. And to be able to like be in your own home and experience this work. Clubhouse is really, I think that's kind of why I was so interested in working on there this year.
Right. Right. And I think we should plug StreamYard, because we're coming from Hop House, plug StreamYard.
Yes. Yeah, all these things that have kind of come up in light of pandemonium.
Pandemic pandemonium, indeed.
Yeah. But another thing I also wanted to talk about was our kind of relationship as playwright director, and how we approach that dynamic. And I think I know that I was quite nervous going into this, and I was like, well, SHARIFFA, I don't want to like cross any boundaries, and I was cautious with you.
Yeah, I'm so intimidating and incredibly hard to read that I can only imagine your apprehension.
I mean, I think my apprehension comes from my desire to control all that happens in this play. And, I came to very quickly and very easily, I was able to like trust you. I mean, I think but the first thing you said to me when I expressed that fear of crossing, stepping on director territory, you said throw that out. We don't need to subscribe to any of those obligations. We will work how we need to work, and this is a collaboration. And that's what you told me on the before the first rehearsal, and I think I was able to kind of release there.
Absolutely.
Can you talk about what that dynamic was like for you working with me the first time sharing this piece, and how how was it working with someone like me who was very tender, I guess, with the work?
Well, I think that you invited me and all the actors to bring our full selves into the space. And that was really, really nice, especially having been through a drought of, theater, as it were. And so to be given that authentic invitation to, as we said, throw it all out, in the sense of like, I often also, wonder what is the line, treading the line of, can I put my DNA on this work? Is there room for me to tinker, to discuss, to push against? And I think when you invited me to really sort of like allow myself to be my full self, one, and two, one thing we had to put boundaries on was making sure that the producer brain of Raven and the actor brain and the writer brain, all three got the space that they needed. But the actor-writer brain was in the room with me the most part. And the actor-writer, can sometimes be informed by the producer brain. So how do we navigate when you're holding so much? Because we're theater makers in South Africa, where I was trained, where we don't have as many sort of folks can specialize, but you're not limited to just one stream or one way of working. So it's not unusual to enter into a process where a producer is writing and directing their own works. That's the infrastructure of our industry. And I find it really rich because now I can have informed conversations with a writer who understands performance. I can have informed conversations with a producer who knows what it means to write. And so it allowed our process to take on a multiplicity and, just a more dynamic.
Yeah, very, very true. And I
like
think that's kind of,
too.
Yeah, we had a very tight crew. But thank you so much, SHARIFFA. This has been really, really beautiful, this whole process. And I know that it's the beginning of our theatrical relationship. And I look forward to working with you in the future. We will be chatting with some of the actors who were a part of our project.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, SHARIFFA. So yeah, I think we're ready to bring David and YOHANA and Jarvis back. Is Jarvis here?
I am.
Yes.
I was just, SHARIFFA, I love, and y'all together it's so special. Y'all have a really beautiful dynamic. Yeah. Well, let's bring these actors on.
We're bringing our actors on. So we have here YOHANA, ZECARIAS, and YOHANA is an experienced video producer, now stepping into the role of the actor. Trained in Black Studies and the art of the moving image at Duke University, her experience behind the text and camera has propelled her to the next phase of her creative practice, embodying the form of storyteller and presence in action. This is her first public performance with us at JAG Productions. Welcome, YOHANA.
Welcome, YOHANA.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Hello. So David Glover is an actor, poet, and director from Philadelphia. He is drawn to stories that demand much of the body, challenge our desensitizations, question our vulnerability, and press at the potent root of trauma and healing. He is most interested in stories that exemplify the full complexities and measures of Black life, love, and liberation. Welcome, David Glover.
Hey, what's up, y'all? How y'all doing today?
Hello.
Y'all are just beautiful. Can I just say that? y'all are just
we're
beautiful.
loving the blue. You guys both have very, very good sets.
I had to bring the atmosphere,
Welcome.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about YOHANA and hearing this bio, and this is it was like your first acting experience, and I heard your performance during the Clubhouse performance, and I'm really kind of blown away that it's your first acting experience. And I actually was blown away before I actually heard you act. It was the initial call that we had on Zoom when we were talking about love and various different topics, and I'm like, wait, what? I was like, who is this? I literally got off the Zoom call and I was just like, wow. I called Raven immediately and I was like, YOHANA is the truth. But just all of those actors in general, I was feeling the love. And yeah, so what was this experience like for you?
Well, thank you so much. It's very high praise. I'm very grateful, especially to Raven, for trusting me and bringing me into this fold. But yeah, I guess my story, first off, I'm obsessed with dreams, just literal dreams, and both the dreams that we all have during the day, during the night. And what I'm also drawn to with that experience is both the visuals and the feeling, the emotions, when you wake up and you feel that. And so in that very same way, film and film production is quite similar. The idea of how sound and light can physically transport you to different emotional spaces has always just been very fascinating to me. I grew up, you know, like in middle school, high school, in theater, and I did some monologues in college, but, you know, I was honestly afraid and just always found ways to dance around the thing instead of stepping right into the center of what the thing is. And so, yeah, this with 2020 and everything that happened, you know, just like why continue to do this dance, you know, why continue to feel like a shell of yourself when you can step in and really be a channel of the life that is wishing to be expressed through me. And so, you know, I felt my intuition was, I came across a video of JAG in Vermont, like on YouTube, and I had this gut feeling. I was like, I know someone who's there, and that person who's there is going to help me like be in this experience. Like, I want to experience this. And so I'm watching the video, trying to see if I recognize anyone, and I see Raven, and how Raven and I connected in New York was also very, very serendipitous, where like, even when I think back to the night that I met Raven, it felt like I was like swinging around with like a childhood friend, like in circles and circles, just so much excitement. And so when I saw Raven that video, I like, boop, boop, boop. I was like, I see you at this thing. What is it? Like, how can I learn more about it? Yeah.
It was my cold year in Vermont. And I remember getting that email, and it's funny because when we talked about it afterward, you said that it came up in your YouTube feed. You didn't even look
like
for
a random vlogger who was like, I'm going to Vermont. And I was like, okay, like, let me see.
Dope.
And so, yeah, you know, I just kind of followed that intuitive gut that was like, you know, follow this desire. And, you know, one thing I'm very grateful for Raven is like her fire, like it moves fast, and sometimes I'm not. I feel like I'm a slower person, and so just like me giving her this idea, and then boom, you know, like it's right here, like, and it's been really incredible that, you know, in a month that these transformations and these relationships have been able to be formed.
I'm so happy that we got to have you, and you know, you were a natural. I was like, there's no way you're not a professional. Yeah, and David, I know that you are an actor, and but you're used to working on stage like the rest of us.
Yeah.
What was transferring the skill of acting like? Transferring it to this audio format, what were the adjustments that you had to make? Where did you have to alter?
That's a great question. I think the fun parts are the struggles to try to make sense of the thing that's challenging, and to try to have a sense of humanity about like the message you're trying to convey with each of the scenes that you're in, with each of the people that you're interacting with. And so I was in 2 different plays. I was in Friends by Gethsemane Heron Coward, and then I was in For the Love of Jazz by you, Raven. And each piece required quite a bit of an adjusting, actually. And a lot of the days in rehearsal were doubled up. And so part of my own sort of physiological troubles were making sure I try not to bring in the notes from rehearsal A into rehearsal B, because the characters are on different journeys, even though both of these are going to be radio plays. But just knowing that the pieces require different things. And so in translating sort of stage skills into sort of, it feels very much like trying to sort of zap the body energy strictly into your mouth, and trying to bring forth some truthfulness and some honesty, really, to that. But the usefulness of having done some Zoom things before and just doing some voiceover work is really useful, because then I can tap into, okay, well, what things work for me? What are the skill sets or the exercises, or what are the actual physical things that I can do? So for instance, some of the rehearsals, you know, for me and YOHANA, we were actually standing up. Some of the rehearsals we would rehearse without with our Zoom video, but without being able to see each other with our video actually off and just listening to each other. And we could actually feel and listen to how it changes the way we respond to each other. I think at the end of the day, you know, we come to see people when pre-COVID days, or even anytime we're watching something, we come to see humans interact with each other through extraordinary circumstances. And I think that going from that larger world of a real stage to then listening and just solely listening in a world where everything is visual. I mean, everything is to grab your eye attention or your ear attention and to sort of zap you in that way. It was really critical to say, okay, how can we let the words, as SHARIFFA said, let the words do the work, and let's imbue them with as much honesty. And then once we get into the rhythm of that, then find the rhythm of the piece. Because Raven, your piece has like a different sort of metabolic rate than Friends that Gethsemane wrote. You know, they have different tempos. They sound differently. They have different rhythms. And so part of the work with the scene partners is finding out which rhythm works well. And it's a kinetic thing that even though, you know, our bodies aren't in the same space, we can still feel it. You know, we can feel when we're given, you know, back and forth where the ball still feels like it's being volleyed higher and higher. And so that's the real difference, I think, just making sure you're able to keep the ball in the air. And knowing that also in an audio play, right, the audience doesn't have that visual stimulation to be able to look at the actor and to see how the words land on the other actor. So that time that it takes to see all that is cut in half. And so there's a transmutation almost of like the time is just like siphoned. And now everything is much faster. And so you're listening and responding faster really than you ever have, almost as if you're in a comedy. And still remain truthful to what the characters are saying, also while trying to keep the ball going faster and forward. So it's just fun. I mean, it's a challenge every time. And, you know, you get the passes that you get at it. And the goal is to try to bring as much truthfulness to it. And hopefully we're able to do that. In a theater, you know, it's ephemeral. And with the clubhouse, it's sort of that way too. But we have these audio recordings, so people have the chance to go back or to come forward rather and listen to the stories we've been telling.
I love that. I love that. YOHANA and David, before you take off, really curious, like what's your vision for JAG or JAGfest? If you had to share that with the world and put it out in the universe, what would be your vision for the festival?
Do you want to go first? I have a vision. My vision is for a continued expansion. I completely believe what you said, Raven, about the importance and the sort of prominence of JAGfest. I know for me, as someone who's based in New York, is escaping the chaos of the city. It's going to a space. It doesn't necessarily mean that the thing is smaller or any less prominent. It just means escaping some of that sort of the juju and the chaos that New York has, and going to a space that's different, that has, you know, a different population quantity and feels different, and to still be able to house that joy, that strength, that blackness, that rawness that we bring to a space. And like that, the essence of that, I feel like can really travel anywhere. And so that is that just containing that and letting that continue to grow and nurturing it like a plant. And so it becomes a garden, because every time, and this is only my second year a part of JAGfest, but it's been a riveting experience. And so my vision is just that there are more beautiful Black artists that you're able to swoop up, and that the fold continues to expand.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you.
And just to add on to that, you know, I think the healing power, and it's been mentioned tonight, of theater is the transmutation of what's stored in the body and being able to exercise those things. I know for me in this process, you know, I've always seen theater and performance as like, oh, it's a tool that can help me express myself, you know. But what I recognized when I entered the space was like, it confronts you with all the unconscious stuff that you're carrying, that you first bring to the stage or first bring to the character. And so you have to do that kind of psychic surgery to like, okay, I need to sort through this stuff of mine that's coming up. I need to excavate what's coming up for this character, and like, where do these like live together? And the magic of theater is that, or at least how I've experienced it, is that the timing of both the actors that you're brought with, the directors, and the text, it's like, did God design this for me? Like, to the text reading friends doing Gethsemane's play, you know, when we had our first actor meeting, when I saw David, I was like, he feels like my friend. Like, I feel like he's going to be my partner. And
we had that conversation, and we both, at a private rehearsal that we actually had outside of the scheduled JAG rehearsals, YOHANA and I met up, and we had this whole conversation about how somehow we kinetically thought we'd be scene partners. So that's just divine.
Yeah. And so, you know, with this process that we went through and what it afforded me to be able to really kind of merge both like my physical and like spiritual practices, because I practice Kundalini, and I found that was like essential to be doing the theater work. What I see for the vision of JAG is being able to extend these spaces and really offer theater as a modality to heal the unsaid that's still trapped within us, to heal our burdens, and, you know, particularly within the Black community, to be able to have these spaces where we together can shake out these demons, create this joy, you know, do all this work. That's, to make it succinct, the vision I see is just rooting in the somatic experience and bringing that to as many people that can receive it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I receive all of that. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for your work. Thank you for showing up.
Both of you, for you, David, for working in my piece and really showing up for my character. And YOHANA, for you, like, you know, taking this leap, you know, after just one conversation. So I'm grateful for both of you. Thank you guys for coming tonight and sharing. I think this is where we're nearing the end of our time together.
Jameson loves his dog bed, by the way, David. Thank you.
Oh, dope. I love it.
All right. Bye. Bye,
Thank you, Jarvis. Thank you, Raven.
My pleasure.
Bye.
All right.
Is this the end of JAGfest 5.0, Jarvis?
It's not that. Well, we have tomorrow. We have the release of the podcast, which will be on our website. And it's another one. It's another one in the books. I'm so pleased with what we were able to generate this year. A huge thank you to the Hopkins Center for inviting us, to Joshua Cole, to Karina, to like the entire marketing team. I'm going to miss some names, but Michael, Ali, so many people to thank. Thank you to Mara, who works side by side with me. Thank you, Raven. Thank you to all the artists. Thank you for the folks who were tuning in. Please continue to spread the word about what we're doing. And
we're not going to stop.
We're not going to stop. No, we're not. No, we're not. So anyway, ciao, everyone. I think that's it.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Good night.
Good night.